Now we want to take a closer look at the candidates and the political road ahead.
Joining us today for that deep dive, Larry Sabato, director of the University of Virginia's Center for Politics. Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
All right, let's go ahead and jump right in with the polling. You are the expert when it comes to this kind of analysis. We saw Trump and Biden basically tied going into the debate, but we saw Biden's poor performance at the debate. Now we're on the heels of this assassination attempt. What are you seeing in the polls so far?
Well, Biden has not fallen by a dozen points or anything like that. I've heard some ridiculous estimates, but we're in a close contest, and particularly in the approximately 7 swing states, which may be expanding, by the way, it's a point or 2 or 3, but in almost all cases, Trump is ahead 1 or 2 or 3. So that's a bad situation for Joe Biden and the Democrats to be in, starting off in the summer. Now, if someone replaces him, probably Kamala Harris, will the numbers improve? I would suspect they would, at least a bit. And she would certainly have more vigor on the campaign trail, and it would be impossible to call her too old.
Yeah, good point there. And, Larry, you mentioned this is a close contest. And, with that said, is Virginia really at play this go around? We know Virginia really hasn't voted for a Republican president since 2004.
Yeah, that's a real warning sign. Look, you can ignore one poll here and one poll there, but when you have a collection of them, both public and private, all showing a very close race with Biden either up a few or Trump up a few, that tells you that a state that went for Biden by 10 percentage points 4 years ago is now a toss-up. That's a really bad sign for Democrats. And frankly, it's repeated in other states that really ought not to be close, that ought to be Democratic leaning, if not likely Democratic.
Well, to that point, we continue to hear calls for President Biden to step down. I have a letter from Jamie Raskin saying he acknowledges how tricky this situation is, with a lot of compassion and empathy for the president. But look, we're seeing this contrast here, right? We're seeing the visual slips. We're seeing the verbal slips in President Biden. He is the incumbent. And so I wanted to bring that question of polling back into play here, because as the incumbent, would you expect him to be doing better at this point?
Well, I'd certainly expect him to be doing better. Despite what people think, the economy is in pretty good shape. You can't sit and argue with the electorate all day long, but basically this economy is better than the one he inherited. And other things have been improving as well. And maybe if there's a cut in the interest rates come September, it will improve all the more. But that's not what people are seeing. That's not what people are interpreting. They seem to be blocked, or their minds are blocked, by the image of Joe Biden in terms of his mental acuity and his physical challenges. We all saw the split screen last night, or most of us did, with a vigorous Trump, you can like or dislike him, in Milwaukee, versus a Joe Biden who was having great difficulty both getting up the stairs of Air Force One and getting down the stairs of Air Force One. I'm sorry that he is having those problems, but the image communicated to voters is not a good one.
Yeah, it's really tough to ignore, and there's always something new and interesting with this race every day. So I guess we'll stay tuned. Sure. Larry Sabato from the University of Virginia Center for Politics. We always appreciate your expertise and insight. Thank you so much. And we'll be monitoring the final night of the RNC in Milwaukee. Join us tonight on the news at 11. Our Verified team will be taking a closer look at some of the claims made by some of the night's biggest speakers, including the former president.